as we look forward now, the word's already out about your upcoming release, the Crusade. Talk a little bit about that release.
And the album being written in 6 weeks. Was that something, like, did you want to write the album in, I mean, does any band really want to write an album in 6 weeks? I don't think they do, really, unless it just naturally happens that way, but I very rarely hear about that.
We had to do it that way, I think, to make Sounds of the Underground or something, or to make Iron Maiden, one of those two. I can't really remember what it was that we had that deadline, but quickly, like, I mean, ever since that, quote, writing time, we were given that, like, hey, you need to write during this time.
We were coming out of that era where it was like dangerous to open up for certain bands. I used to get bullied by some of bands that I grew up with, their posters on my walls. I remember there was a show I had once, my voice squeaked. I had to walk through their dressing room to go to our dressing room. They're all making that squeak at my face, pointing at me, cracking up. I'm like 18, 19 years old.
There's a really painful quote. I actually like this quote now because it's hilarious, and I write a lot about food, and I would like to make a shirt for this, so I showed up to grab this stuff, and our tour manager, I won't say his name either, because I don't want to do that, but he went up to the band and said, whoa, 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 because they're about to grab a plate of food. No one eats till Matt Heafy eats.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to our Trivium Retrospective on Renegade Jukebox, a Renegade pop culture production. My name is Mike, and I will be your host for this evening. Joining me, we've got Nick.
This dragon will rise and break you.
And we are on the third album of their discography, one that's actually pretty nostalgic for me, since this is the second album after Ascendancy that I owned and probably listened to quite frequently. This is The Crusade. Now, we have to kick off this episode with a classic Nick rant. So what do you got for us?
Well, Mike, I actually came up with this after we did Ascendancy, and I had to get clever with this, and I was amazed I never even thought about this band this way. So, Mike, care to say this with me? Care to sing this song of unity with me? I had to work that joke in there, but just trust me, I had to get a laugh in before we piss ourselves off by having to say this and repeat it again. So, Mike, say this with me. Trivium is not a goddamn metalcore band. How many times do I need to fucking say it? It's in the riffs. There's no generic breakdowns. I know I need to keep saying this repeatedly, and I sound like a broken record, but the way I thought of this after the Ascendancy episode, Trivium to me are a thrash metal band the way that Nevermore get classified as a thrash band. Like, yeah, it's not sounding just like Overkill or Toxic Holocaust or Death Angel, but clearly the inspiration and the sound is there. Clearly the influence was there very early on. And if you really use your brain, kids, you can realize the new wave of American heavy metal clearly inspired by thrash metal and new wave British heavy metal. So just, food for thought. But that's why I wanted to kick off this episode this way, because this is really the best way to launch into where Trivium's heads were at by the end of 2005 going into 2006. So Matt Heafy just wraps up contributing to the Roadrunner United album, and Trivium play the New York show where they had pretty much everybody who used to be on Roadrunner Records, used to be being current tense, obviously. But by 2006, you could notice some obvious changes in the band starting to happen. Kind of like what I alluded to, the Master of Puppets cover being one indicator. But also by 2006, you could go look at something like their 2006 download appearance. And this is where it becomes noticeable in the live environment, because Matt just stops screaming altogether. Literally all the Ascendancy songs, he just sings it the way he would on the Crusade.
Now that's an interesting development.
It's a bizarre thing. I've only heard theory and speculation, but nothing confirmed. But the concern was that Matt didn't want to blow his voice out. So that was one rumor, but you also do see quotes from him like on the Wikipedia page going, he doesn't like a lot of the bands that scream at the time. And I kind of can't help but go like, well, eventually you're going to tour with In Flames and, you put out Ascendancy clearly. My personal conspiracy theory is a huge maybe kind of sorta. I think Matt was smart enough to go, even though, to make it clear, Trivium is not a goddamn metalcore band. I think he had the foresight to go, metalcore is becoming increasingly watered down, less heavy, less inspired by traditional metal, more focused on generic riffs and generic breakdowns. We need to get away from that. And also, this is me going off of a podcast appearance that he did where he said that if it wasn't for the image on Ascendancy, where they were just growing their hair out at the time, except for Corey, obviously, he's always had long hair. But if it wasn't for the image on Ascendancy, I think a lot more people would have been willing to give it its fair shake. Whereas the Crusade, his entire idea was, you know what, let's go and prove all these people wrong. Let's go write a straight up old school thrash record. And that's why the Crusade ends up how it is.
Yeah, this is the album that it really just is a thrash metal album.
And I'm going to make this clear to everybody listening to this. So this will be the first of the quote bad Trivium records that we're going to obviously be defending, because really, I really like the Crusade. I mean, I wouldn't be wearing a shirt to record this podcast based off of the same album, but I don't think them going back and doing a just rehash of Ascendancy would have been the best idea. I don't think that would have been the best way to follow an album that classic up. But at the same time, whatever was going to follow Ascendancy up wasn't going to be as good, if we're being honest. I mean, how many times can you follow up a classic with an album as good or better?
Not every band can have the 4-album streak that like Machine Head had.
Nobody can have like the first 5 Metallica albums. Nobody can have the entire Lamb of God catalog. Nobody currently can have like Orbit Culture's recent 2 albums. But the thing that makes me appreciate the Crusade, just in hindsight, really, is that it also does hint towards directions that they could go into. This isn't just them going like, we're just going to make an album that sounds like Metallica and then put it out and see how people like it. Because I think people just automatically have that impression because of the vocal styling, because to make it clear from the get-go before we hop into the songs, this is Matt Heafy pretty much only singing for the entire album. There are bits of growling, but it's not as prevalent as most of the later records and Ascendancy and Ember, obviously. But another thing that I wanted to mention, but that completely escaped my brain, the album art, that's what escaped my brain. Because
yes,
why did that escape my brain? I don't fucking know. Just shut up and enjoy your free podcast, people. But no, the album art I wanted to point out, because we didn't really mention it on Ember or Ascendancy, but I feel like it's kind of appropriate to bring up here, because if you really look at the artwork for the Crusade, it's still in line with what they were doing before.
I don't know the artist who does the album art, but at least visually, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, exactly. The way that Ember to Inferno kind of has the forest up in flames and kind of looks like it has a figure in there. Okay, that looks like something that would be for a Trivium record. But then Ascendancy, and I love that they decided to call the figure that's on the Ascendancy cover Monty. I have the feeling that's a reference to Monty Connor from Roadrunner Records, but no, cover to Ascendancy, obviously it looks fucking badass. It looks like apparently it's something that Matt wanted, inspired by Iron Maiden in a way, but then with the Crusade, just given that it's a thrash record, given that it incorporates some, again, stuff that's going to be included on later records, it's still in line with everything, and it still looks cool.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With that in mind, Mike, do you want to hop into the album proper?
Yes, and before we do that, I do want to point out that something I noticed just going back through their discography, this is the only album, as far as I know, that doesn't have like some flashy, like cinematic intro. It just gets right going with Ignition.
Yeah, that is a really good point. It does kind of just go like, you know what? No frills. Let's just cut right into the music. And from the music by itself, again, it's still very much in line with what was happening on Ascendancy. Just in this time, they're playing in E standard rather than drop D. And for the record, for this entire episode, I am going purely based off of Noah Likes Metal on Reddit, who did a complete Trivium tunings list for every single album. He probably won't hear this episode unless he just stumbles across it. So you are a saint, sir. But no, just if you really listen to the riffing, it's still in line with what was happening on Ascendancy. Just the lead and rhythm work, song super punchy, like it should on a Trivium record. As for Matt's voice, he does adopt a lot of James Hetfield influence into his singing. It is very clear. But again, I still like his singing on the whole. It fits the music. It's not whiny or nasally as all bloody hell.
No. And something else that I just really like about Matt singing, when we get to the chorus, that's, I think, when he really shines.
Oh, Matt's voice always lands the chorus. I mean, I don't think the man has ever played a bad guitar solo in his life. I don't think the dude has written a chorus that's like, this is too poppy or syrupy. No, this is too sugary. No, take it back, redo it. But no, the entire time, I could not stop singing the chorus the entire week. But that's also because we have to talk about the lyrical content. There's a lot of socio-political influence going on this record in particular, more than any record before or after, I find. And again, to be clear, that is purely from the lyrics. Mike, I will even give you the few seconds. Do you want to tell people what the chorus to this is?
Sure. We'll start with the pre-chorus. Our leaders preach if we disagree. We are the traitors of society. Homophobia, racism, sexism. Our systems breathe supremacy.
Yeah, if you can't, like, this is still in line with what's going on Ascendancy. I mean, we're pretty much picking up where Declaration left off on some level. And I guess that's just what makes me appreciate this song so much more. I find myself going back and listening to it. I like this thing a lot.
Same. And I think because of where we are in the political climate today, it kind of makes this out like this song definitely, but the album as a whole, it kind of makes it hold up all the more.
Exactly. And the same thing can be said about Detonation, which I also am keeping track of this for everybody. This is one of the very few appearances of growled vocals, more towards about like the 2.5 minute mark. But this is kind of the point of the record where I realized the people who just called this album Metallica Light, I don't think those people actually went and listened to the album. I think they just took one cursory listen with one ear to the vocals, heard them, and just wrote the entire thing.
Which is just unfair because A, this song kicks a lot of ass, and B, there's just too much talent in each member for them to just be written off as, oh, this is just Metallica Light.
Yeah, like especially that bridge section going into the guitar solo, it really reminded me of The Deceived and also of Prometheus and the Crucifix off the next album. I really like this tune, but I also won't lie. I'm curious to see how people would have reacted to the style switch more to traditional thrash metal. I would have liked to have seen people's reactions back in 2006 after hearing Ascendancy.
Oh, same. Speaking only for myself, again, back when that old Dean Guitar website had its radio station, this was the third Trivium song I ever heard. So between this, Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr, and Pillars of Serpents, that was enough to be like, yep, I'm a Trivium fan.
Well, next tune, Entrance of the Conflagration. So this is where we get into that really was getting into serial killers on this album, because this song is about Andrea Yates' murder of her 5 children.
And keep in mind, this is before the big true crime craze that really kind of kicked off in like end of the 2010s into the 2020s.
Yeah, and just going back and hearing this, I'm mainly going to be talking about this from a musical standpoint, but it's just a solid, proper-ass thrash metal song. I mean, the solos, there's only so many times we can say the solos are amazing. Matt's vocals sound really good on this. The chorus immediately gets in your brain. Travis's drumming is really solid on this song in particular, too. There's also a fun little bass noodle Paulo gets before it goes back into the chorus. I don't have much else to say about the actual song. It's just really solid. Really been off to a solid 3-song start to this. I might even revisit this track in particular more often.
This is one of the songs that, while not the song that I've listened to the most on the record, it's the one I've always enjoyed coming back to for everything you just said. It's solid musicianship across the board. And yeah, the more times I listen to it, the more I do appreciate Paulo's noodling.
Yeah, like that part is so cool. And then up next, this is at least like our 3rd single, because Wikipedia only has Detonation and Entrance of the Conflagration as singles. But even I vaguely back in the Much Music days kind of remember seeing the video for Anthem, We Are the Fire.
I'm not sure. Actually, no. I've probably seen the music video at least once or twice, but I think where I've probably got the most exposure to this song is, this is gonna date me, but the soundtrack for Saints Row 2.
No, we'll allow it, but this basically is the most Metallica sounding song on the album. But at the same time, it's so energetic as hell. It showcases what's already great about the band, period. And it's just a killer mid-tempo tune about how great Trivium and how great heavy metal are. I also do appreciate in the lyrics how they make the entire title of the song work, rather than just having it be a throwaway title, but the bracketed title is what it's actually called.
Yeah, because it is an anthem.
And in this case, this is the most arena-worthy part of the song. For all 7 times I have seen Trivium live, I have not heard this, but I would love to hear this in a live environment. And we are dropping a sample for this part of the song in particular, because any James Hetfieldisms is always just welcome. Yeah, we had to drop that part in there just because this is where they're very blatant about it, but at the same time, I'm not mad or annoyed at it. And anything that references James Hetfield is just awesome.
Oh yeah.
No pun intended. But next track, Unrepentant. I actually took note of this because I don't pay attention to songwriting credits, to be honest. But this is the first of only 3 Corey songwriting credits across this entire record, if we're including bonus tracks.
Yeah, I noticed this too. It is a good, I mean, it's a great song, but I didn't realize until recently that this is like one that Corey wrote specifically.
Is it just me, or like the song picks the energy back up after Anthem, but is it just me, or does this kind of give you New Order era Testament vibes?
Yeah, I get those vibes for sure.
Like the riff is kind of unorthodox, but I actually really like it. But then when it drops you into that chorus, it winds up making the entirety of that opening riff make more sense in the context of the song. And Apollo gets some awesome lead work in the mix before the chorus too. This is another song that's dark lyrically because this one, I'm about to tell a very morbid story to you all. It is about a man by the name of Nazir Ahmed. He is a guy who murdered his 3 daughters and his stepdaughter in front of their mother. So again, plenty of songs that are political, but also plenty of songs that are about murder.
Yeah, this one gets dark.
But at the same time, I am kind of on board with dark Trivium. I mean, we do get darker Trivium songs later on down the road too, just lyrically and musically, but I'm 100% on board with Trivium just being like, we will write something dark and morbid. I would be completely on board with that if they decided to make an entire record of that. But ladies and gentlemen, our next song, this is our first introduction of Trivium using 7-string guitars.
Yes, this is And Sadness Will Sear.
Look, I do like the music that's on here, and I am kind of agreeing with that same podcast that I mentioned that Matt Heafy did. He does say that he wishes they would have worked on this song some more and gave it more of a bridge. I do kind of notice a little bit of that happening on the song. Apparently during his Twitch streams, he does add to songs that he wishes he could have reworked more had they had more time, because apparently, fun fact, Mike, they only had 6 weeks to write this entire thing.
Oh, wow, that is not a lot of time at all.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have basically a 1.5 year turnaround from your big hit record. So I can understand potentially wanting to go back and rework some stuff or redo some parts of it, but also this is another dark lyrically one. I have no great way of transitioning away from technical stuff to hate crime territory, but basically the lyrics to the song is about the murder of Matthew Shepard, who was a gay man. And yeah, this song is basically kind of a condemnation of the hate crime and more just as a kind of a rest in peace to somebody who shouldn't have been murdered like that.
Yeah, lyrically and I guess musically, you can feel the weight of that just in the lyrical content, and the 7-string kind of adds to the heaviness of the subject matter.
Yeah, exactly. And it is pretty much how a song called And Sadness Will Sear, it's what I would imagine a song with that title would sound like. But as much as I do like this song, and I do like it does kind of hint at the future direction of things for the band, my personal opinion, the next song on the album does it better.
You guys can't see the shirt I'm wearing, but the next song is a personal favorite of mine, Become the Dragon.
Yeah, I'm just going for the throat on this one. Best song on the album by a mile. For one, it's really the first song to go into Matt Heafy's heritage, which I don't think we ever touched on. So for our listeners, he is half Irish American, half Japanese. He was born on a Japanese military base. So he incorporates a lot of his heritage into the lyrical content. And to be honest, the lyrics are made immediately memorable by knowing that, on top of them being infectious too. The riffs on it are just super heavy, but also get melodically interesting. The song also isn't afraid to get technical and progressive, especially in that last minute, which we're about to drop another sample. So if for just context, Hollow even gets the opportunity to do a bass solo amongst the pile of guitar solos. Here it is. This is also the second song on this album that I can think of off the top of my brain that has any growling on it. But this really does tease the direction they would go in on the next record.
Oh yeah, especially when we get to that that growling part, it definitely like you said, it teases exactly where they want the next record to go.
I realized this writing my notes and just re-listening to this record on repeat for about a week and a half, but this is what Blinding Tears Will Break the Skies was for Ascendancy. This is exactly that, but for Shogun.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
So I've got a bit of an odd comparison that I'm going to make, but I want you to hear me out when I say this about To the Rats. For one, it's a pure old school thrash song about going full Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back on people who trash your band. I mean, who doesn't love that?
Oh, it's amazing.
But just hear me out with what I'm about to say. In the hands of a douchebag, like say, oh, I'm going to gun for an easy target just because he's an asshole. Ronnie Radke. So the way he would write lyrics to something like this would come off really whiny or insipid or petulant. The difference here, the music is genuinely heavy. It's technical. It has great musicians. The vocals themselves aren't whiny. And it also really helps that Trivium aren't felons who just want to drop slurs and complain about cancel culture.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it on the head. But also, the other difference is, and I think Matt has talked about this throughout various interviews, Trivium is a band for the fans, not for critics, not really even for general audiences. But if you're a Trivium fan, you're a Trivium fan for life.
Oh, exactly. And the way I'm kind of seeing this, again, I'll mention this later, more around the time The Sin, the Sentence comes out, but the hate that they were getting back in the day, even that they're most critically acclaimed, even if the album would have done well commercially or critically, the hate they got back in the day was so unjustified that I kind of can't help but go, I feel like they had every right to respond.
Yeah, that's the thing. This song is just very cathartic to everyone who was giving them shit for what? Being popular?
Yeah, and I'm going to quote Crash Thompson back when he was the rock critic. Guys, sometimes a band is successful because they are genuinely really good.
Exactly.
Occam's razor, sometimes the most obvious answer is the one sitting in front of you. And also, we got a killer thrash metal tune out of the deal. I don't feel like that is a unfair trade-off.
Oh, no, not at all.
And before we get into the next song, To the Rats is also the third track to feature any growling. So we've got two back-to-back. Mike, how about you start this one and then ask for my comment?
So the next song is kind of a personal favorite of mine, despite how corny the lyrics can be. Not corny, more sincere. This world can't tear us apart. And I actually heard the song for the first time before I picked up the record back in the mid 2000s. I think I said this before, but anime music videos were all the rage. And I think I found one for like one of the Final Fantasy movies. So that was kind of my first exposure to this song. And it just kind of stuck with me for the rest of time. But now I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts on this track?
So since this is basically the dying in your arms of the album, I'm going to be honest, I actually prefer this one.
Yes, I had a feeling you'd say that, and I kind of agree with you.
See, my entire thing is that, yeah, you can look at the song title and think this is incredibly corny, but then you actually look at the lyrics and they're actually well thought out and they still work in the style of the Crusade, mainly them being about love overcoming whatever challenges in life there might be, but also it does take advantage of, this is our third song with 7-string guitars, and it takes very good advantage of them. And it has a great guitar solo to finish the song off. So again, I don't have a lot of complaints or anything to really tear the new one over. It's a good tune.
Yeah, like what you said, the solos, the musicianship, again, the 7-string, it really does put this one over Dying in Your Arms.
And now it is time for us to get back into thrashing territory.
Ah, yes.
So Tread the Floods. This is one that you need to open up the motherfucking pit over. It's also another one of the two core songs written for the main album. And it's one of those, yeah, this screams like a track you would write. Like he is totally going nuts on the fretboard to this thing. I think pretty much every note on the fretboard is played. But anyways, also helping that the chorus on this is infectiously catchy. It just gets in and gets out within 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, it is just awesome. And didn't you say that you heard this one live before?
Well, without jumping ahead, because I haven't seen the band live at this point, because I only would have been in grade 7 at the time. But yeah, no, they would eventually start playing this one live more often by 2016, and I got to hear it, and you were surprised that I've heard as many songs off of the Crusade live as I have, but believe it or not, it's really only 3 that I've heard.
Getting back to the song itself, I think Corey just wrote a banger. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, him and Matt's chemistry, again, just as musicians, just as songwriters, it's just kind of unmatched when it comes to just the riffing, when it comes to the soloing. They do pretty fair trade-offs, I find, when it comes to them switching out guitar solos between each other and everything. And also just the lyrics to this one, basically saying, whatever you're going through, you have to overcome it, or, and I directly quote, we all will die today. That is something I think we all need to get behind at this rate. So if you need something that's gym motivation, listen to Tread the Floods.
Well said. And now we move on to, again, more of Matt's obsession with serial killers.
Well, not so much serial killers. Technically, do we want to count this as a hate crime?
We could.
Yeah, just because it does involve racial profiling. I am probably going to mispronounce this person's name. I sincerely apologize. It's about the racial profiling and murder of Madou Diallo. Was a black man who was murdered by police suspected of having a gun. And also, this is our fourth 7-string guitar track. So this is another one that's crept up as one of my favorites on the record. The riffs, they have a very pre-Shogun feel to them. And it did feel like Matt and Corey really wanted to take advantage of showing off what they were capable of with that additional string. Also, the double bass work. This is some of my favorite. This is probably even my favorite Travis Smith moment on the record. I haven't talked him up very much on this record, to be honest, but his drumming is really solid on this one. And honestly, if you had growling or screaming on this track, it wouldn't be that out of place on Shogun.
Oh no. I'm even kind of imagining like the exact place where I would want to have growling. It would be where they're singing the title of the track, "Contempt Breeds Contamination."
Like in the background. Yeah, I can kind of see where you're going with that. Yeah, I don't know why I never came back to this one nearly as much. The next one, the band probably wishes they wouldn't have to ever come back to at all, because this is Trivium's favoriteest song they've ever written.
All jokes aside, maybe it's because I've been listening to this album multiple times in preparation for this podcast, but The Rising has actually really grown on me.
I'm gonna be honest, I never listened to The Rising nearly as much. And I honestly just kind of clown on it just because I think it's hilarious that this is the song we're clowning on. I feel like we're picking on the kid that really shouldn't be picked on, but at the same time, even the band kind of just goes like, we don't really like this tune. Basically, it was studio mandated to have another big radio single for the album, kind of in the vein of Anthem. And they just said, okay, let's just make it more mid-tempo. But if I'm being honest too, it's still catchy as hell and still has everything great about the band that's already there. And it does pick up the tempo again during the guitar solo. Fine if it's not someone's favorite song on the album, that's okay. But like, if this is the worst Trivium song, I think we're doing pretty good.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out is Jason Sukoff gets to solo on this track. So that's cool.
And I didn't mention this during the Ascendancy episode. He actually gets to do a guitar solo too on Pull Harder.
Yeah, it's nice to have Jason be more than just a producer, but get his hands dirty.
Well, he's also the guitar player in Charred Walls the Damned. I believe I said their name right. It's the band with Tim the Ripper Owens and guy who was in Death and does stuff for Howard Stern's show. I'm totally blanking on his name right now. I feel like such a moron, and Sound of Perseverance is my favorite Death album, so I feel like a complete idiot right now for not knowing. Richard Christie. I pulled that up on Wikipedia, and thank you, Bree, for editing around the awkward silence. But yeah, my entire thing with The Rising is purely just, I like to clown on it just because of how much the band doesn't like it, but let's have some more fun with it. Why don't we? Just because, well, for one, this was a hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit, and like more so than other music videos, I probably saw this one on MTV2 like the most out of everything from the Crusade.
Probably makes them just wish, man, I wish we would have fought harder for one of the bonus tracks to be on the record. But yeah, I need to mention this because I told Mike this. I wanted to include this in the intro. So for our listeners who don't know as well, Matt Heafy does Twitch streams where he plays video games, mainly plays like a lot of Call of Duty, but he also plays Doom. but he also does vocal warm-ups and plays guitar on stream. Like he'll do full album playthroughs, full vocal playthroughs of the entire record. And for the hype for What the Dead Men Say and In the Court of the Dragon, he'd always upload a video of himself. It'd be building the hype machine, right? It'd be like, hey guys, Matt Heafy from Trivium here. And guys, I can't believe it. We're finally going to be announcing our new record coming out later this summer. Yes, this is our new album, The Rising 2. That I wanted to include that, but I can't find it anywhere. Unfortunately, that intro is going to be technically unfinished for not having that clip in there, and I'm kind of annoyed I can't.
Man, that that just gets me every time I remember it. But yeah, I think it's fine that the band has that one song that they can't stand, because every band has that. But in hindsight, it's really not that bad of a song.
No, it's a good tune. It's just it just gets eclipsed by pretty much everything else that they've ever done, even some stuff off of Ember.
Yeah.
But our next one is going to be our closing track to the main record, and it's our last one to feature 7-string guitars, actually.
So this is the title track, The Crusade, an 8-minute instrumental that's, I mean, they're pretty much taking a page right from Dream Theater, like their own epic instrumental.
And if you think about it too, not counting intros or any of the interlude tracks that are on In Waves, this is the only proper Trivium instrumental.
Yeah. Part of me is only a little bit disappointed because of how good this one is. But I also can see the argument of not being able to top what they accomplished on this track.
Kind of like what I said about Tread the Floods. I do think pretty much every note on the fretboard of every guitar and bass is played at some point on this song. I mean, like you said, it's pretty much them saying we can go toe to toe with Dream Theater 2, and just wrote an 8-minute track showcasing that. Also, I appreciate the song on multiple re-listens to looping back around to that main riff again. I don't think there is a better way you can close this record out with.
Oh yeah, no, they arranged this song perfectly from the way it opens to the way they close it out.
Well, just in terms of track listing, I kind of mean, I like albums to feel like it's a front to back experience. But given that we're not done with this episode, we actually have bonus tracks again. And this was one that I was surprised that because I don't normally loop around to bonus tracks unless like I really, really, really love the record and I want to hear more off of it. But it kind of makes The Rising sting worse for the band because they had to kick this song off of it for that song.
I even made note of this back when I wrote my Trivium discography ranked from worst to best editorial. I said about The Rising, it's not a bad song per se, but it pales in comparison to Broken One, which is the song that we're talking about now, which was bumped off and reduced to a bonus track.
It is a bummer. Like, this deserves to be on the album. Like, from that amazing opening bass line, the way the twin guitars come together, and then it starts thrashing your face off. It just adds so much energy to the song, especially with the lyrics being about putting your life back together. This song, hearing this for the first time as a pretty diehard Trivium fan that's heard everything they've ever done, this is kind of the perfect time in my life where I needed to hear this.
Again, a testament to Matt's lyricism. And again, just the instrumental is just hitting you right there.
Well, just in general, it's a killer tune with awesome playing. Like, this is pretty much everything I want out of a Trivium song. Just again, this, given that most of this album doesn't have any growling on it, even if you decided to add growling on it, I think it's even perfect the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it just needs to be heard by more people. And I think this will be a rare case of us putting a bonus track on the best songs list.
Speaking of bonus tracks, we've got one more, and that's Vengeance.
So I don't have a crazy ton of notes about it. Like, the riff is some proper thrash metal. The chorus, it reminds me a lot of Practice What You Preach era Testament. The guitar solo on it, it's amazing. That stood out to me on repeat listens. It's just a solid thrasher about lunatic priests in Christianity who try radicalizing people. And it's just very blunt and direct and knows how to open up the pit. I don't like it as much as Broken One, but it's a solid tune. It is worth checking out if you haven't heard it.
Yeah. One thing I'll say before we get to our closing thoughts is something else I like about the bonus tracks. They are another tease of what we will eventually hear in Shogun.
Oh, 100%. And before we really get to our closing thoughts on this record, let's get our best songs out of the way. I've talked pretty much the majority of this. Mike, you have the floor.
Okay, so I think Nick and I can both agree that Become the Dragon is like mandatory on any best list. So for me, tied for first is the title track. And then I'll give two more. I will do Detonation and This World Can't Tear Us Apart.
I am surprised you put that on the best. But what I wound up picking, I tried to pick not typical ones, but then I ended up picking typical ones. So best song on the album goes to Becoming the Dragon. To the Rats is my second choice. Tread the Floods, Entrance of the Conflagration, Contempt Breeds Contamination, and Broken One, and the title track. I pretty much ended up picking an album's worth of best songs, which I am going to say, while I really like the Crusade, there are things I guess I could nitpick about it, like maybe the not having an intro to kind of give it more like making you feel like you're listening to an experience, or bumping songs off in favor of others. But I think the lesson we can learn about Trivium doing something different with the Crusade after a huge album that blew them up, basically, I think the thing we can learn is that, one, let bands experiment. Because it can only lead to good things. And in the case of Trivium, we don't have Shogun if we don't have the Crusade. We don't have any of the records that come after this or after Shogun if we don't have Trivium going, let's see what they do when they take risks. Now, one Reddit thread I looked up some time ago did say, how much did the Crusade hurt their career? Wouldn't say it really hurt it or stalled it, because they were still getting like airtime wherever they could that would play their videos. But also, Trivium were being taken out in Europe by Metallica and Iron Maiden. They even went on the Family Values tour with Korn, Evanescence, unfortunately, Hell Yeah, but and very early before selling out Five Finger Donkey Punch.
So the lesson that we learned about Trivium doing this album, like, I think the lesson that we learned is they are such capable musicians that they can do really whatever they want, and it's not going to hurt their career.
Yeah, exactly. I also can't help but go, just let them do what they're going to do best and let them write songs for them. And also, the thing that I'm going to say to just everybody in general, not even reviewing an album, not even talking about songs in depth. This is me just talking to you, the listener. Listen to the album before you form an opinion on it. Put on good headphones, sit back and relax, and just either enjoy or explain why you weren't into a record reasonably, because this also, I had to include little clips from other interviews because this was also a Trivium album that received backlash nonetheless, because everybody just thought they were just trying to sound like Metallica.
And here's the thing. Say whatever you want about any album, really, but the one thing you can't say about Trivium is that they're trendsetters.
Trend followers, you mean?
Followers, yes.
No, so, well, in the case of this album too, this would, I bring up them being hated on again purely because this is where we got some of the jokes that the band would make. Apparently, it was some crew member. It wasn't Matt. It was some crew member saying to somebody in a band, and I quote, "No one eats until Matt Heafy eats." And now it's become the biggest inside joke in the entire Trivium fan base. And I kind of can't help but go, man, this is the dumbest reason to hate on any band, is some, especially if you're in another band that's going to be touring with them in Europe. It feels like the dumbest reason to not like a band.
Oh, yeah, that is pretty dumb.
So don't deride a band that is just getting their footing. Don't for experimenting. Don't deride a band for taking inspiration from their influences. Just judge the record on its own merits. I feel like we did a pretty good job defending the Crusade.
Now, if you were to ask me back in, say, 2007, 2008, I would say this album needs no defending, but hindsight and just paying attention to the reactions over time, yeah, we had to give this album its fair shake.
Yeah, exactly. It's also not a Burning Red situation where it feels like it's just jumping on a trend at the time. Like, yes, I do understand that there was new wave of thrash type stuff happening at the time, like Municipal Waste and Toxic Holocaust, but Trivium were also already inspired by thrash. And again, that's why I wanted to open up with a Trivium are not a metalcore band rant, was to just kind of establish that and establish who their influences were. And they'd still carry it into the next record. So I feel like this is kind of the best spot we can leave things off with.
Indeed. So the next time we will definitely be talking about, again, probably one of my favorite albums of all time. But until we get there, Nick, where can everyone find you online?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram. I mainly post album covers, movies I'm watching, video games I happen to be playing at the time, and just go please binge like my page. It helps with the algorithm. And, you know, I appreciate the follow. Any binge likes get shouted out on my page. So please, any help is appreciated. Thank you.
Hell yeah. And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Renegade Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You can escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Jukebox. We will catch you guys later. Nick, take us out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.